So this is Love, Lust, and Witchcraft episode 3, Ammorette. Remember, don't assume you know what's gonna happen, and keep an open mind. My name is Agapitos, and I'll be narrating this story. So this story begins with me meeting this beautiful woman named Ammorette. She was 5 feet, brown skin, all natural, locks, and a body like a Coke bottle. She was a spiritual woman, really put God first. And when you saw her, she looked like one of God's top-tier creations. A truly lovely woman. In fact, her name meant little love in French. Although she was very physically pleasing to look at, my favorite thing about this woman is that she was a chosen one, and so was I. To be chosen by God is a blessing and a curse. To be chosen by God is to be very misunderstood by the very same people that God expects you to love. I had never ran across another chosen one in my lifetime. Finally, somebody that has the potential to truly understand me spiritually. I had a wife. That woman neglected me in ways that I thought I would never have to go through, and we divorced. Ironically, Ammorette was also divorced, and she went through the same exact thing, and we both understood what it was like to give your all to something, only to be left stranded in the end and broken. Some may call it a trauma bond, but it was a bond nonetheless. Who cares? Dog, we prayed together, we prayed for each other, we fasted together, and above all else, we felt completely safe with one another. Now here's the kicker. You know how they say when something seems too good, it must not be true? Well, this was no exception. Now remember I told you she was a woman of God and I was a man of God. So before I invest in anybody in my life or anything, I always go to God. And she did as well. So one night we decided to ask God, who is this person and why are they in my life? And man, we were nervous because it felt so good and we did not want to lose this thing, but we had to check in regardless. So, God answered us. I had a vision, and she had a vision. In my vision, God told me, you and this woman will have an intense and passionate but short-lived relationship. If you disobey me, if you two are to obey me, you will have my blessing and longevity. But you two are not to fall in love or have sexual relations. You are only to be friends and not take it past that. Because if you do, it would be very destructive. And ironically, God told her the exact same thing. So when we spoke afterwards, we were both kind of scared to move forward because we felt so deeply. And the very thing that God told us not to do, we ended up doing. Did we try to keep it cordial for the most part? Yeah, we did. But our feelings were way too strong to be just friends. Truth be told, me and this woman was in love way before we even went to God and asked his permission to move forward. And as far as sex, we held off as much as we could. It started off with just hugs, and then it elevated to kisses. And then one night during a retrograde on a full moon, I remember it like it was yesterday, we had sex, and this was no ordinary sex. Now hear me out. When you put two magnets near each other, there is a magnetic pull that pulls them together and eventually causes them to stick, right? So what if I told you this particular night when I was near this woman, there was this strong magnetic pull between me and her, but sexually? Naturally, we gave in. I remember the first time I seen this woman naked, just sitting there looking at her. She was absolutely stunning. She was nervous, so she was sweating, and the moonlight glistened off of the sweat on her brown body. Her titties were so goddamn pretty. The moonlight reflecting off of the juices on her pussy made it seem like her shit was gleaming. It was drop dead silent when she grabbed me and pulled me closer to her. Her heart was beating so fast I could see that motherfucker beating through her chest. Now keep in mind, I'm just as nervous as she is, because God had warned us and we were not listening. I did not want to lose this woman. So I opened my mouth to tell her, hey, we shouldn't be doing this. But before I got a chance to open my mouth, this woman grabbed me by my waist and she pulled me inside of her. And man, when I felt this woman, everything that I was thinking went out the window. When I entered this woman, our spirits astral projected and they left our physical bodies. And we went to this new realm, this nirvana of love, light, and happiness. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. And in this realm, we spoke telepathically, and the sex was tantric. It didn't take us long for us both to agree that we never wanted to leave this place. We wanted to stay forever. It was no wonder why God warned us about this. This shit was dangerous, but it felt so damn good. I fucking loved every second of it. I didn't want this shit to end. Why would I? So I'm fucking this woman. Her eyes are locked in on me like she in a fucking trance, and I'm stirring her shit real good and stretching her the fuck out. I can hear this woman's thoughts. I can feel what she's feeling. And she is losing her motherfucking mind. And so am I. This woman felt too damn good. So as if things weren't already bad because we was disobeying God, here's where things got even crazier. So we in the missionary position while I was gunning her the fuck out. She opened her mouth real wide and held out her tongue. And I heard her speak to me telepathically and tell me, spit in my mouth. And I did just as she instructed. And I spit in her fucking mouth while I was beating up her shit. She swallowed it and her body began to shake and she dug her nails in my back. And she mumbled these words: I will never leave you. I will always be by your side. Me and you together forever. I bind your spirit to mine. And then she came hard as shit. And she moaned, so mote it be. And it's crazy because the moment she casted that spell, I felt that motherfucker activate. I felt my body get filled with adrenaline, with passion. And I just felt so obsessive over this woman. Nothing else mattered but her. And you know what? I was okay with that. I didn't know why, but I was okay with that. Afterwards, Ammorette got on top. And she began to jack it while she was riding the tip. I lost my motherfucking mind watching them titties bounce while she fucked me so goddamn good. She stuck her fingers in my mouth and opened my shit up and spit right in it. And she told me, bind yourself to me as I have binded myself to you. I swallowed her spit and I said, to the divine powers that be, in love and peace, I bind this woman to me. Through this spoken covenant and this physical sex, Ammorette, you are binded to me in this lifetime and the next. I moaned, so mote it be, and then I came inside of this woman, and I flooded her motherfucking guts. Ironically, when I bust, she did too, and I guess that was confirmation from the other side that our covenant was now very much active. And afterwards, our sacral chakras began to heat up extensively, and this obsessive feeling came over both of us. It felt like we were on fire. Nothing else mattered but us. The sex was endless. There was no limits. It's almost as if we could not stop even if we wanted to. She was speaking in tongues, taking every inch of me, and screaming at the top of her lungs so loud that her voice began to crack. Ammorette then looked at me, and I heard her voice in my head tell me, I want you to get me pregnant. Breed me, Papa. And I told her, yes, baby. As I began to say a spell to manifest a child, we both heard a loud voice say stop, and it was the voice of God, and we returned to our bodies immediately. When we returned, it felt like we had been thrown back into our bodies, and to our surprise, we realized that it had been 3 whole days since we had been gone. Our bodies were weak, we were dehydrated, and it felt like we were dying. God had forced us back to the physical, and we were absolutely terrified. We went to God immediately, and he instructed us to fast for 7 days away from each other so he could undo what we had done. We immediately began to fast away from each other. We did not talk, and we did not see each other. On the 3rd day, Ammorette gave in and she came to see me. Part of God undoing what we did was us facing the backlash from the spells that we cast, so it felt like we were both losing our fucking minds. Meanwhile, Ammorette still wanted to have a baby, and she wanted to go back to whatever realm we was in, and truthfully I did too, but I told her we could not because of what God said, and she began to get violent. She began to lash out, and we began to fight, and things got very, very violent. And in the midst of us fighting, we heard God's voice tell us, you two are done. You will never be in the same place at the same time ever again, in this lifetime or in any lifetime after this one. Your spirits may crave one another, but you will never have each other because of your actions. God then told us to turn and walk in opposite directions until he told us to stop and to never return in each other's presence again. He also instructed us to not look back as we were walking away. And that was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. But God said it, and it was so. I heard Ammorette wailing as she walked the opposite direction, and I was crying so hard I couldn't even breathe. But the truth is, we deserved this. And that was the hard truth, because this is what happens when you step outside of the will of God and you exhaust his grace.
A hell of a story, homie. It's always important to listen to God. But truthfully, us as humans, sometimes we wrestle with what our flesh wants, and that get us in trouble. Do you think they was wrong? What would you have done?